Hello everyone, thanks for checking out this next video. I'm going to be installing my countertops for the van. Some oak boards that I'm going to join together, cut a hole out for my sink, cut a hole out for my faucet, and then attach it all, sand, stain, and seal the boards, and hopefully it'll look nice at the end of it. Here it comes. Alright, so here's the plywood that sits on top of the counter. This is so that my sink is a little bit higher up so it doesn't run in, the drain doesn't run into my fridge. That sits underneath. I need to cut a hole back here for the sink, and then I'll cut the hole in the oak that's going to go on top, and then I'll stain and seal it and put in my faucet for my sink, and it'll be looking good. So first step is to cut the sink hole in this plywood. Alright, so I cut this hole in the plywood. It's not attached yet, but it's set in there. Sorry I didn't do the video of that. Here's my sink. I'm gonna drop it in there and see how it looks. I know this is a pretty large sink, but I wanted to be able to do everything without a dishwasher, so I wanted to have more sink space. I really like this position of the sink. It takes up most of the space, counter space this ways, but it doesn't take a whole lot of counter space width-wise, so that leaves me a little gap of space on the front in order to set your cell phone or maybe dry a cup or two. It leaves me some room in the back for soap and my faucet, which is a hook shape. It also has a pull-down piece on it, and then it leaves me so much space for preparation. Cutting board or my cooktop or things like that can all fit in down here, which is excellent. So here are my boards. I'm using 4 boards, 2 6-inch boards and 2 8-inch boards to cover the countertop. I'm using a biscuit joiner to join them together, which just cuts this little disc-shaped hole in here. And then you align those with a disc-shaped hole you cut in the other board. You slide a biscuit into them, and that biscuit holds the two together to where they don't become uneven. So we got it all glued together. That's what it's going to look like, except for it'll have a hole right here for the sink. Other than the hole for the sink, it's just going to be a straight countertop. Should look pretty good. Just waiting for the glue to dry, and then I'll come back and be able to cut the sink hole, sand, stain, and poly it, and then I'll have a countertop. So I'm underneath the sink right now. I need to screw into the bottom of the plywood up into the countertop so that I can cut out the hole I made in the plywood to fit the sink and put that hole in through the countertop as well. So it's going to be a little awkward, but at least it's interesting. Alright, I've got it laid upside down. As you can see, here's my actual counter. Here's the plywood that sits underneath it. It's got a little overhang. I'm going to cut this hole out for the sink by drilling holes and then putting my jigsaw through it and cutting along those lines. So to cut the hole, I use a jigsaw. I have one, so that's one of the big reasons I use it. It's pretty versatile. It can do different types of metals, woods, things like that if you get different blades. But it's easy to drive around and cut different shapes and sizes, so that's good. Before I use it though, I have to drill a hole so the blade can fit into it. I use a 3/8 bit, pretty simple. And then I just cut the whole circle out for the sink, and I'll set the sink in and make sure it fits. So I do suggest putting things in before you go ahead and do other things, because I had to adjust this a little before I go and sand it and stain it and all that. But now it's looking good. It's all set in there. It's all very level. Looking pretty darn nice right now. Next step is sanding. So I've got 3 different grits here. It's a 80, a 120, and a 240. So grit it from really low grit to higher grits. I need the really low one because there's a lot of big uneven spots, and then the high grits just so you really get good smooth surfaces for the stain and poly to sit on. And then I'll also do a high grit whenever I do in between poly coats, but I'm just going to go through all of it. I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to stain it, and then wait a few hours and poly it after that. Well, I'd be tired if I said I wasn't tired of sanding. Goodness, that was a lot. I had to do 3 different grits across the whole countertop, and I ended up doing the tabletop as well. So it was a lot. Good news is, now all I have to do is tack cloth it to clean off all the sanding dust, and then I can stain it and get it that much closer to being in the van. So here's your tack cloth. It's a little bit sticky, and it says to open it entirely and then bunch it up together and gently wipe the surfaces. So that's the plan. So next is the stain. I just used some wood stain. It's golden oak as the coloring. Start up, put it on there with a rag, and I just cover the entire thing in 1 coat of the stain. It's pretty simple. Alright, got it all stained. Next step is to polyurethane it. I did the semi-gloss. It's just so I can seal all the wood, not have to worry about water in there. And then if I spill something on the counter, I won't have to worry, I can wipe it off. The counter will take a couple of coats. Some of the other pieces may only do 1 coat, but definitely for the counter, probably 4, maybe 5 coats of polyurethane before I'm really confident that it's good and sealed. Well, good morning. Day 3 of putting in my counter. I think you could do it in 2 days if you were a little more ready and didn't run into any speed bumps like I've run into, but that's neither here nor there. So I've run into a speed bump. My countertop has some just missing spots of stain, so I'm gonna have to sand back through the poly and stain those spots and then poly over again. So I think I've messed up. Look how gross that looks. Most of it looks pretty bad. It's no longer sealed. This piece actually doesn't look terrible, but the whole wood everywhere, it looks so choppy and scratched, and the color's not consistent. It just looks bad. So I'm gonna have to kill off my poly and re-sand the whole countertop and start over. It's annoying, but it's gonna make it look so much better. So here goes nothing. All right, game time. Day number, I don't know, I've lost count, but I'm gonna finish up staining and put the first layer of poly back onto the countertop. And this time I'm gonna make sure the stain looks really good before I poly it, so I don't have to worry about going back and messing anything up. It's gonna be good this time. Okay, so I've sanded it down, I've removed all the poly, I've removed the old stain, and I'm gonna sand it one more little time, really fine grit, just to make sure that the stain sticks really well and I don't have to do this all again. One more sanding, then I can stain again. Here we go. Good news, I got a layer of poly on there. It looks nice. I'm gonna let it dry, try to keep it either all in the sun or all in the shade. It's not too windy right now, so all really good conditions. Let it dry for a few hours, and then come back, sand it down a little, and put some more poly on there. All right, so 2 coats of poly on there. Now I have to wait for it to dry, sand it down one more time, put another coat of poly on there, and then we'll check it after 3. Hopefully I'll be done. I might put a 4th on there if it needs it, but 3 should be enough, so we'll have to see. Finally, I got the counter in. It's in its spot. It's got its 3 coats of poly on there. It looks good. I'm just getting really excited about it now. Done. Counter's in, sink is in. I still need to mount it all down. Watch out for a future video about that and plumbing and things like that. Thanks for watching. I have 3 takeaways from this. If I learned anything from this at all, those 3 are to take your time. Do not rush projects. It'll just be so much better if you don't rush anything. Number 2 is check between steps. Once you've completed a step, make sure that that step is actually complete and you've done it right before you move on to the next. If I would have done that for the staining on my countertop, I would have not had to spend those extra few days sanding it back down and staining it again. So check between steps. The third one is be willing to restart if that's what needs to happen. So I had to really go back and use up an extra few days, get rid of all the work that I've done. It's really annoying, but it was worth it. It's what needed to happen. I'm not saying to go do that every time or really any time if you don't have to, but if that's what needs to be done, be willing to back up, restart, go back to add more work onto your plate. So thanks again for watching. I'm glad you could just hop in, and makes this so much better whenever you're watching, checking out my videos, telling me that like you enjoy what I'm doing in here. It feels like it's for more than just me. Like, subscribe, send it to your friends. Comment or send me messages. Tell me what you want to see. Like, do you want to learn about how I made the bed slats? Do you want to know what I expect from VanLife, or what it's going to be like to live in here with my big dog Banjo? Whatever it is you want to know, please comment or send me a message. That'd be awesome. Thanks again for watching. It just makes it so much better to have an audience, people to like communicate this awesome project with.